Hello, everyone. This is the Metabob Podcast. It's a podcast where we interview the best minds of the AI field, both thinkers and creators. And today, we are very lucky to have Shilpa Sharma. She is an entrepreneur in the artificial intelligence space. She is working on her startup Flyte, which is a way to automate meeting notes at the snap of a finger. Basically, it's a software that uses AI to listen to the meeting and to create an automated summary, and it's fully customizable with advanced security. And yeah, thank you so much for being on our show.
Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no problem. So, yeah, why don't we just get started? And what's your background? So, where are you from? Where'd you grow up? How did you get into tech in general? And yeah.
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name is Shilpa. I'm the co-founder of Flyte. As Donji mentioned, it's an automated note-taking platform that generates well-organized meeting minutes and action items right after a call. I'm an engineer turned businesswoman who is passionate about innovation using artificial intelligence and other technologies. I've spent most of my career in technology and enterprise B2B businesses. I've lived in various countries that includes France, Japan. I'm originally from India, and currently I'm in Canada. This idea of starting this company came really from a conversation where I felt like a salesperson when he mentioned he spends 40% of his time just doing note taking. I felt like you can invest time in having like good conversations and innovation, marketing, but not just documenting and sharing notes. So that was the spark. That was something that ignited that spark, like, okay, we need to do something here. We need to automate something. I'm excited to be here today and would love to talk about Flyte in detail and tech landscape in general.
Yeah, definitely. And so where you grew up in India, and then how did you get to France? I think that's really
Sure.
fascinating.
Yeah, let's talk about that. So, right after undergrad, I did my engineering and then I started my career with JP Morgan on trading floors. So, I had initial inclination in finance and wanted to do a bit of technology. So, I was on trading floor managing tech operations. I spent a couple of years and then I thought of doing an MBA from international school. I did my MBA from NCR, which is one of the most international schools in the world. And that's how I ended up in France. It was exciting to be like in France, learning French and understanding like all the concepts on strategy, finance, tech, everything together. The curriculum was kind of like very intense, but it was equally fun when you have opportunity to meet so many people. In NCR, you have 90 nationalities that sit together in one classroom. So it was a great learning experience there. That's where I made more friends from Japan as well, compared to like many other countries. And at that time, it started like Japan is quite advanced in tech. And I took another role at Intel, and that was in Tokyo. So I was like, okay, let's explore that. So I spent
Wow.
3 years. Yeah, I spent 3 years in Japan working for Intel. It was more of a business development, sales type of role. So all enterprise B2B business at that time. And Tokyo was preparing for 2020 Olympics at that time. So it was interesting to see how they were building the 5G technologies and all IoTs and tech landscape that wanted to kind of like showcase in 2020 Olympics. They are trying to do this still in this year. But that was a great time in Japan. And then I came to Canada because my husband and I, that time when I got married, and we wanted to just move to Canada together. He was in New York at that time. So that's how I came here. I'm in Toronto right now. And last year we wanted to do something creative, innovative. We both are tech enthusiasts. We love playing with technology and bringing efficiencies in systems and workplaces. And that's where Flyte started.
Wow. So you're really a person of the world, aren't you? That's really
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
impressive. How did you first get into tech? Was it something that you've always been interested in, or did you take the business path or the programming path? What was your path? into tech?
My engineering was engineering physics. So I'm originally from math and physics background. So I understand the statistics and AI foundation. From there, when I started working in tech, like in JP Morgan and Intel, I realized it's such a dynamic like ecosystem where everything is happening so fast. And that's something I really like enjoy. And I really get excited when things are going fast and improving. So it really generated from the beginning when I was doing my engineering and working at like different firms. And then I felt like from coding perspective, I still need someone. So my co-founder, who is a technical founder, we both came together and we were like, let's build this company together.
And when you went to JP Morgan, were you working on AI stuff as well?
That time, AI was not that mature. It was more like statistical modeling and all that. So when I was at JP Morgan, it was all trading environment. And we used to have automated algorithmic based orders that trading happens on algos. That used to happen. And there was like, I used to be the first one to identify a few areas where there used to be flaws or something. We used to take care of all those algo automated orders going through our systems. And that strike that thing that like the way things were changing at JP Morgan when I was there, it was fascinating that how technology was penetrating and they were just removing manual traders like one by one, and things were going on automated platform. And I could see the impact of how technology can take care of all the orders, all the trade for a business, and we won't need a lot of people manually punching orders for each client. I was very like fascinated with the type of algos, type of logics that were created at that time. And I was the one, because I had that knowledge of math and physics. I used to be the first one. I was the go-to person when someone needed like explanation on those automated orders. And that's where it really started, Donji. And it feels like that was a good time that I started into that role. Until now, I feel like that background, that foundation has helped me to understand the logics and to understand and create product roadmaps. So even if you have the ability to create, like write code and just create something from software perspective, there should be a long-term visibility into the roadmap, how you want to build a product, how you want to build features, and what kind of features would be more useful compared to the others. And MBA in between and like in the career, that really helped to understand how business sees the problem. So it's not just tech. You have to know like this is how it goes and applies into overall big picture into the business. So that perspective came from MBA and interacting with multiple people at different levels of the organization. So complete package with business and tech. I feel like I'm in the situation when I can start a company and think about how business can use a certain platform, and not just from tech perspective, you create something without having a lot of knowledge on business application.
So that kind of gave you a look into both the business world and the tech world at the same time.
Exactly, that's correct.
And then you went to the Intel Corporation to study, or not to study, but to implement strategy and business development. And what was it like moving from JP Morgan to Intel?
That was a fantastic move, and that was a big move. So like working on trading floor, you really work on timelines of like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, because it's a dynamic market. Traders are punching orders every minute. So that was a fast dynamic environment, but that was very process oriented. You do this, and that's it. When I moved to Intel, I was in strategic role where you think long term. So it's not very time pressed, but it's more like you build that kind of thinking where you understand like when someone is building a product or building a strategy for a product, what kind of things you think about. So the projects that I did there, most of the accounts were like Japanese accounts that included Hitachi, Toyota, like those big accounts. And we worked on multiple projects where timelines used to be like 5 years down the line, how you want to structure the deal. Or for example, in 2017, 2018, when Japan was trying the 5G thing, because they wanted to implement that in Tokyo Olympics, it was clear that you need to have a roadmap where how you want to implement 5G technology, or how do you want to go ahead for like Toyota's driverless car roadmap. So those kind of projects I did, and it gave me clarity on it's not just a short-term business that you have to focus on. You need to have a vision, like in bigger picture, what you see the business evolving in. And that gives you a full visibility. Again, you run a project, and that one project is kind of a startup that I'm doing. In short term, your mission is to like accomplish a certain task, but in the long run, what do you want to achieve? For Flyte, it's clear now that in the long term, given the solution is so close to almost every business professional on the planet, we would love to have Flyte to be a ubiquitous solution that could be used by every business professional. But in the short term, how we want to implement and execute this idea, we can't just go everywhere. We need to focus on certain industry, certain function. So that's the smaller, like shorter term task that we try to achieve. So that both perspectives of understanding something in short term, but looking at bigger picture, that's the thing that I got from Intel. Hope I answered the question. Was a long answer.
Yeah, that's very interesting because when you're designing a chip, there's just so much that goes into that. Not only do you have to like build the chip and also work with the clients you're going to build the chip for, but then you also have to build the programming interfaces for the programmers to program the chip. And then I'm pretty sure you had to like think about a lot of different facets of the entire supply chain, huh?
Exactly. Like even if we are putting a chip or like small modems in the whole like the value chain of the overall IoT solution or many other solutions that we were implementing, we needed to take care of the partnerships. So Accenture or Toyota and Intel, everybody comes together to build something together. So how you make those alliances, those partnerships, what is the role of a software on top of hardware chip, those kind of things and nuances should be taken care of in the beginning and not during the project. So these kind of visibilities came through that experience, and I really appreciate that.
And what is the Department Recognition Award? It looks like you won something there for generating like $1 billion revenue pipeline in over 3 years. That sounds really cool.
Wow, like you are hitting like nail in the head, and that's a great thing. That was one of the greatest projects I did at Intel, and I'm really proud of that I got an opportunity at Intel to do that. Intel was starting to move into memory business at that time. Like they did have something before, then they closed it, and then they started again in SSD, like all those memories, solid state drives that they sell now. They were starting like their production on.
Wait,
like
where would we see these products? Is this for consumer ones, or is this for like servers, or what kind of memory?
Intel's business is all B2B. So this is in PlayStations, like Microsoft Xbox or Sony PlayStations, in data centers as well, like everywhere. Like when you have data, you need memory. Like it's simple solid state drive. So you need storage. And they were kind of like new. So there was one client, and they were building like a lot of their product. I will just try to make it more standard solution. And then they were building that, and they were just getting the SSDs from different supplier. Intel was not there. As a strategic person, I was looking at like a lot of data and looking at IDC reports and everything, and I realized that customer, we used to be like in data center business with them, but didn't have any revenue for memory business, like storage business. And I was like, why not? And they were buying from somewhere else, and public data showed they are buying like in billions. And I just went ahead and talked to our sales and business development teams. I was like, looks like there's an opportunity here. And because we didn't have the like history in SSD business, our salespeople at that time didn't know like there is some opportunity there. We started like looking into that, like who are the suppliers, what kind of product they are making and all that. We looked at their overall sales cycle, when they will start it again, what would be version 2 and version 3 would be released and everything. And we realized they were building product at that time and the suppliers were already agreed. But the next version would be launched probably in 6 months and 12 months, the way like most of the softwares do and hardwares do as well. And we just captured that opportunity. So sales guys, they were able to just capture that opportunity. And we realized that we won like $1 billion deal in like 3 years span, but that was the greatest deal. And Intel awarded me with this recognition at that time.
That's amazing. That's quite an amazing story. And then, so tell me, how did you were doing IoT here, and then what was the transition to getting more into the AI space? Because you said that you didn't formally, well, you were just an expert in algorithms, statistics, and at some point you had to make that jump.
Yeah, for sure. This was like coming from this background, you always have that at your back of your mind. So when you see some opportunity coming in, you realize you can do something about it. And my co-founder, I knew like he knows a lot of it. And it was just like Flyte happened. I understand AI, I understand like these technologies exist because my whole like career has been in technology. I closely follow TechCrunch, like every other startup that is coming in. So I understand that. So when I was talking to this friend of mine who was in sales, and when he mentioned that, I immediately knew like there is speech to text. So why people just don't use that instead of writing notes by using their notepads or even Evernote. And that's where it really sparked. And when that person said 40% of the time spent on note taking, that's a lot of time. That's a lot of time for a person in a day, instead of like spending time in selling. If you are letting few customers go and putting notes in CRM, I was like, there should be a tool that could be attached to Salesforce or other CRMs and can be used for automated note taking. That required that was first instinct when you feel like this could be automated. And then you start looking into like what kind of technologies exist. And that's why we have spent last 10 months building the prototype, because there are so many things that just evolve when you come with an idea compared to when you actually build a product. And it just keeps evolving. Even today, when we are planning to launch it in 1 week, we know that like there are a ton of features that we want to build, and it will take some time, some like couple months after that, and we'll be able to provide much better solution. But yeah, that's what tech is. It just keeps changing and you just keep adapting. So yeah, that happened that way.
So you, when you got into AI, so your business partner started getting into AI. How did you meet your business partner?
So actually, we have known each other from almost a decade now. We started our careers together at JP Morgan. He was on finance side at that time, started with tech and then moved to finance. He has breadth of experience, but he has done like coding from his childhood. He's my husband now. And
wow,
it's simple. It's easy to just have the co-founder who is your family member. You can always work together. We both are passionate about this. He knows that part where I feel like I can spend more time on building the business, talking to customers, spending time on podcasts, webinars, and everything. He's taking care of the coding part, and we discuss the logics and how we want to build product features and everything together. So it's very complementary skills that we are leveraging, and it's a great team now, and we are excited about Flyte.
Wow. Wait. So how did you guys meet?
We met at JP Morgan.
Just like working on the same project?
Yeah. So we started our careers together. We come from different colleges, and it was just a coincidence that we were together. We hired at the same time, and then we were just friends at that time. But we did our MBAs from different schools, but almost at the same time, because almost like after 4 or 5 years, you just go for an MBA and then start like another career if you want to transition and everything. So we did that, and then we got married. We know each other. We were friends for a long time. So it was a great partnership as well when we started this company.
Wow. Wait, so how are your guys' personality types different?
You can be friends with different personalities. He's completely different, like in terms of understanding something or his perspective. It's more like from process standpoint, he's
Hmm.
very clear. So when he's speaking about a product, he knows exactly like these could be the challenges in the short term. My personality is a little different, where I think from like more customer perspective and longer term and bigger picture.
Hmm.
So when we talk to each other, we literally like we can create the business from short term, long term product roadmap perspective. He comes from the VC background as well, so he
Hmm.
spent like 1 hour 1 year or so in a VC, and that really helps us when we go talk to our investors. He
Hmm.
knows like VC standpoint and an entrepreneur standpoint as well, and that really helps. So yeah, it's like multiple kind of like qualities are coming together. We know like in next few months when we will be out there launched product and everything, we will be expanding our team, but right now it's just two of us, and we are kind of like managing everything, and it's been exciting and intense at the same time.
Well, that's awesome. So you
Thank
guys
you.
didn't have to work remotely because you.
No, we are
That's
working, yeah.
what a huge advantage.
Yeah, no coordination, nothing like, oh, let's talk tomorrow, today I'm
Yeah.
busy and all that. Whatever works, it works right here. So yeah, we can spend 10, 20 hours together working on a startup perfectly fine.
Do you think that gave you an advantage for getting to market faster over the last year?
I think so. Like, because if there's any challenge or if there's something that we want to discuss, it's just right away. We can
Uh-huh.
just talk about it and get to the work. Uh, Building an AI platform that can auto generate like notes and everything, looking at the features. Like, I had conversations with potential customers last year in September, October. Now I show them the product and they're like, you came really fast. Like, building an
Hmm.
AI platform by one person with like very little help from like other people. It was a faster like go to market for us, and similarly like reaching out to customers and working full time and just doing this one by one, getting more customers. It was exciting. It was like sometimes got intense, but I totally agree with your point here. We probably kind of like accelerated this with FI for sure, but yeah, we were quite advanced early on.
Wow. And then so in the AI process, as we know, there's a lot of different steps. There's building the AI, there's training the model with the labeling, and then there's how did you guys handle all of that complexity?
Actually, I mean, pandemic helped us because
Uh-huh.
kind of like every conversation was happening on Zoom, and if people are our potential customers, we can always ask them like, we will use this conversation to train our algos, and they were like, yeah, sure, go ahead, because they
Okay.
wanted to do the pilot. And there were a ton of conversations that happened over Zoom, so for us it was easier to just take those conversations, train our AIs, and rest was like when you build an AI algorithm for conversations, every conversation is different. So like besides building like a vocabulary, something that kind of like enriches the transcription and summary in the end, all conversations are independent. And in the end, like a lot of like training is not required in the beginning, but with beta testing in next 2 months, it's going to be even like better for us when people will just try it out independent like meetings for themselves for their professional or personal conversations. But yeah, for sure, last 1 year that helped us a lot. Like people were not meeting in person, they were all on Zoom.
Hmm. And when you can you give us a without giving away your secret sauce, can you give us a inside look into the process for how your AI works and how you labeled it and built it?
Yeah, so I'm not a technical founder, so I will give
Uh-huh.
you very
Yeah.
like in layman language. So when you're having a conversation, we tried like very fundamental and basic logic is as business professionals ourselves. When I'm in a meeting, I will just try to take notes. Like someone talked about specific information. Let's do this pilot with 20 users. Now, this information, there is a data, there's a statistics, information is available. Instead, if I say, hey, how are you? Your background is fine and all that. We try to make judgments like where there's more information compared to like other statements. We try to analyze that conversation and try to build that logic to create summaries. So we build like the topics and the conversations around that to create a well-organized summary.
Wait, can you give me an example of another example of one of these categories?
Categories like, can you elaborate a little bit more for me, please?
So you're saying that you look at the conversation and like you mentioned something about when people talk about the background or a certain topic.
Yeah. So, okay. So just to elaborate that, we try like every time you're having a conversation as a business professional, if there is a ton of information that's available in a certain statement, certain conversation, we try to pick that compared to like rest of the conversation that happens around normal chit chat, but that's not information rich. So we try to extract information and the conversation around that becomes like part of course summary, and rest we provide transcripts as well in case somebody is really looking for the whole conversation. But our like differentiation is that we have like multiple algos that look at like how rich is the conversation, and we try to pick that part of conversation. So we rank it and we kind of like put it together in a well-formatted summary.
So did you have to like label parts of it where it was, to teach the algorithm, like this is highlight this part that's, this was a compliment, that's not important. And then you highlight a different part and teach it like, by highlighting this, we're teaching the algorithm that this is the date of when they should meet up next, or something like that.
Exactly. So we extract action items and questions, and all the NLP magic comes when you are extracting those kind of words that you just mentioned. If there's a question like, what about that? Or if there is a action item where like, let's meet next week or something like that, those kind of information are captured separately because we want to kind of like integrate this with Calendly or other like calendar management tools. So it can just directly flow into that. And that way users have ease to just create these kind of tasks directly into their calendars.
So, and you mentioned multiple algos. So so do you have like a first pass algorithm, which just helps filter out the necessary, like information rich stuff from like the other noise? And then do you do another pass on the information rich part once you have isolated that segments into, this is for Calendly stuff, this is for, integrating into Salesforce, etc.?
Yes, exactly. Like these separate algorithms, they have different roles. So as you mentioned, certain part that captures summary, certain part of algos that captures actions and questions. So that's how we have divided and structured the overall like backend code.
Wow, that's very interesting. And then,
thank you.
And then, did you always know that you were going to connect this to Salesforce and Calendly right from the beginning, or did that realization come later?
This is like we want to create a note-taking solution. So in general, it's all like platform agnostic. You can just take notes. It's like for specific purposes. For example, if salespeople are using it, then of course they would need Salesforce integration or other CRM integrations. We don't have it in place today. In our current release, it's going to be a note-taking solution. But yeah, in future, we will think about like these integration as we go further into like building this product and adding more features.
I see. So then you're going to have to build out different models to pipe this information to this use case, to this other API for Salesforce, for Calendly, etc.
It's going to be just like integration tasks. I don't think it's going to be separate algos, but it would be more of an integration that integrates Flyte UI with the other platforms that are available if there's a need. Yeah.
Nice. And what was it like doing tests with your first customers? How was that process?
So we will launch our beta in a few weeks. So it's
Oh,
going to
okay.
be starting like early next month. We are currently like continuing to have the live demos. So really like working with customers, showing them these are the product features. Their initial reaction is really positive. They like it and they are excited to just test our product as we just provide them like we create their profiles and provide them the access.
And what about fundraising? Have you guys gotten any funding already, or are you planning on fundraising soon, or what is that situation?
We had our first like early on angels pre-seed investment from one of the VCs firm based in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
They invested early on, and we will have like we are planning to have another round probably towards the end of this year when we have like beta testing done and just have like good customer traction in the beginning, and then we'll go for the next round. That first funding that happened early this year, that was exciting, and it was a great motivation, and it happened right after Founder Institute Seattle was done and those VCs were there. So it was exciting. Flyte was one of the top ranked startup in FI Seattle at that time, so we got a chance to like connect with good VCs as well. So yeah, that was a great early motivator. But yeah, our plan is to just raise another round probably end of this year or early next year.
And what things are you most excited for right now in this current in your startup Flyte?
We are very like customer focused company.
Mm-hmm.
And we really want to focus on customer needs, what they are looking for, and like building a proper good workflow tool that helps them reduce a lot of redundancies. So for me, like now that we are going to launch our product soon, we are excited about how customers react, and we are happy to take their feedback, that valuable suggestion that they're going to have after using our beta product. We are happy to just go ahead and refine our product and create the one product that's the most useful to them when they are taking notes. It should be something like indispensable, and they should use it like this is the tool that I want to use when I'm in a meeting. So we want that kind of feeling from our customers, and we are trying to do our best to give them world's best note-taking platform.
Awesome. And what were the biggest challenges in building an AI startup that you've encountered so far?
Sure. Like as a startup, you face a lot of challenges. You kind of like surpass them, and then you have another set of challenges. When we started this whole conversation, there were a couple of times when we were thinking of like initial customer engagement. We wanted to focus on certain specific niche market, and it took a while for us because we were thinking it's just sales, and then like over time when we engage like project managers, product managers as well, just to see how big is the market. We are realizing, and these are the things that are kind of like evolving Flyte overall, like this is the market that we want to focus on. We have like, without doing any integrations, we do see like customer success professionals, they are very excited about that, because when you build a product, you need to target certain like niche market, and that's where you see like you put all the effort to building like integrations and product features as well. So it took a while for us to just get there, where this is the market that we want to focus on, because that's where we see a lot of pain point compared to like other industries and maybe functions. So that was one. And then building a product, there were a lot of things. Like when we started out, we built a small code, just wanted to see like how it works. But when you start showing it to customers, they are like, okay, I probably need it this way. There are few features they suggest right away. Like even for beta launch, you can't just give very high level thing. You need to have some structure in that. So we needed to build and change our algos over time. We had very simple, crude, like note-taking thing in the beginning, but then bringing things on UI, like most of the UI part, like putting like a lot of features, those were the challenges that we had to face during the overall development. Even like we were, in terms of timelines as well, we wanted to just launch it probably a month ago, but we probably, and that's the thing that we are learning, that when you are developing a platform, even a user login or like putting some data set into a platform, that sometimes takes some time, which you don't foresee in the beginning. You're like, we will build this platform, deploy it, and probably would be done. But it's sometimes quite the opposite. Few small things take longer time than you expect. So
Hmm.
someone like my mentor, she told me like, you might want to give a bit like stretch timeline when somebody asks you, because things change when you start developing a tech product like this, which is like completely AI based platform. So those are the things that we got to learn through this exciting journey.
Yeah, it's one thing to collect data, but it's another thing to display it. And then it's another thing on top of that to display it well.
Exactly. Because if it's not looking good, sometimes people feel like it's too messy. I got this
Mhm.
feedback from one of my like fellow founders from FI. He mentioned that I'm using a note-taking platform and it's too cluttered. He was like, I need a neat platform. And sometimes simple things are hard to build.
Mhm.
So we wanted to keep all these feedback, these suggestions in mind to build this product. So yeah, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but we don't want to delay it too much. So yeah, our first prototype would be launched early, like maybe in next 2 weeks for sure.
And for people from the business perspective, for AI, what feedback do you have for other AI startup founders?
Hmm. That's a great question. So like my feedback and my overall like recommendation on an AI startup, it's a fast growing market. There are three pieces to a like SaaS solution, at least like when you're building a product. One is building the back end AI, the code. Another part is the server part, the like where you deploy everything, like all the mechanics that happens on cloud. And third part is the front end, the UI, where you build all the functionalities. You need to pick right like technologies and right people to build these three components so that you don't have to redo the work. Because
Hmm.
sometimes when you are building an AI platform but you chose some like cloud solution or something, if that platform is not a complete solution, there would be challenges. You cannot change cloud every time, so you need to pick the right solution there. When you are building a UI, you need to know exactly these are the features and these are the things I'll put on the UI exactly. So because when you redo things, it's a lot painful. So think through it,
Hmm.
think a little bit like longer, like how people will use it. Those kind of things have to be like thought about, and you need to understand the overall big picture, who is going to use it. Because as technical people, sometimes we overlook that mindset of a business person, an executive or a CEO or head of sales or a sales professional. How do they see a platform? So if you are giving a platform that is adding on top of all the platforms, all the softwares that they are opening in the morning to start their work, it should be so seamless that they don't have to put extra effort. So think about that. So it's not just the pretty website and like fast platform. It's about whether it's like seamlessly integrated with others. So when they just click one or twice and everything, and it just flows and seamlessly flows the information, keeping in mind that everything like related to data, there should be a good privacy and security protocols in place at the back end, because today this is something you need to take care of. um, Being in like SaaS businesses and tech businesses build on AI.
Hmm. And uh, was there any other things that you wanted to cover about Flight that we didn't so far?
I think I would love to talk about like company's journey overall, like
Hmm.
how do we split function like our work, and how the dynamic is, because that's something that's super important for a startup, like how the team works together, and maybe like how we split our time and manage the startup. Because if it's not well executed, it's not managed well, then then I mean, there are so many startups, 90%
Oh,
fail.
yeah, I'm fascinated about that, and I'm definitely sure our audience would love to hear about that. Yeah, please. And I, yeah.
For sure. So like as a CEO, as a CTO, as a CRO, you have like 3 or 4 member team, for example. You know exactly, like you need to understand that there should be a timeline that is blocked for every task. Now, how do you do that? Few people, they have everything in mind and they just keep doing work. But having a right schedule and having right responsibilities or accountabilities from each person without micromanaging, like people have different like kind of like personalities, but you need to understand what's the team dynamic and how you want to manage your people. It's always good, like maybe twice a week or 3 times a week, having a like working together. You need to just come together and talk about in general, like what kind of challenges are you facing, what are your successes, and what are the things you're working on in general. And there should be one session where it's like brainstorming session. Just don't think about startup, just don't think about anything inside a box. Just think about how do we improve something. Just throw a question and let people think in any direction, because
Mhm.
people bring new ideas, new perspectives given of their like their roles, their function, who they talk to. They have different ideas. So just sitting together and having a brainstorming session at least once in a week, or like depending on the startup, once in a month or something, that is super helpful, super useful, on top of your regular check-ins where you just talk about normal like day-to-day tasks. That way you are able to create a culture, and you have like short-term responsibilities covered, while you are letting people think and letting them own those responsibilities in the long term as well. They are part of that vision. They are not just working for you, they are
Mhm.
working for the business together. So that's something I believe. And then celebrate, like every time you have success, just celebrate, because that is important and that's what people remember. So that positive feeling in people that they did something, and then you are becoming part of it and celebrating and just enjoying with the team, that really supports them and that encourages them to do more for the company. Because working is in a startup is really hard. People like put aside a lot of things to just work full time, spend so many hours. They have a probably good options to go to big enterprise and just work there. They work with you, so they come on board looking at your vision, looking at you. So bring that team culture, and like they succeed together. That's what I would love to say to any AI startup.
That's awesome. Is that something? Are those tactics or you know, is that way of doing things something you've learned in JP Morgan and Intel?
I would say Intel specifically, because their culture was very liberal. Like literally, you are on your own. With JP Morgan, I was like, I knew exactly like these are the things I have to do.
Mhm.
But when I started with Intel, that was something, and it took me a while to understand what's going on, because nobody tells you, like nobody gives you any task. They are like, just create your own task. And I was like, okay. And then how do I do that? And then they're like, you need to just come up with 3 ideas that give revenue to the company, and by year end we will talk about your successes. You can always talk about people in sales and this, you have accounts, you can talk to people and just create. So when you start thinking and you have enough time to think and create your project on your own, you are becoming an entrepreneur. You are thinking, because based on your thinking you are creating your project that you work on. If they succeed, your year end is becoming like good conversation with your managers. But if you're not able to like get those revenues or projects succeed, you won't be. So it's like purely you, then you are making decisions. And that's the creativity an entrepreneur is required to have, like when they think and they bring new ideas, they bring people together. So that kind of culture I like kind of saw in Intel. And they used to have like good way to celebrate when they had like some success, like the deal we talked about early on in our conversation. We
Mhm.
had a good party, so everybody was like, and they give credit to the person
Mhm.
who came up with the idea. So that really encourages people. So I learned from that experience and many more living in different countries. you get to understand people, culture, and those things really like resonate when you start working on your own business.
What life lesson outside of the startup world, tech world, would you like to share with people?
I'd say life is kind of like learning experience, and specifically like in my experience, it happened that I ended up in different countries and worked with different people. Like there's completely different culture in Japan than France, than Hong Kong, India, US, Canada. They have completely different cultures, but one thing that is in common is if you are getting along, you are okay to learn from people and trying to just kind of like understanding them and trying to become like them and learning their languages, involving into their culture. uh, People appreciate that. So gel well with people. Don't think like this is something I don't want to learn. The more you learn, the more people start liking you because they feel like you are part of their community. So that's what I did like in almost every country, and I felt like I was always part of that community, and I also enjoyed and learned a lot. So that one thing I would keep as a takeaway: when you meet someone, just understand their culture. It's always give and take, and people love that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. This is a fantastic interview. And so if people want to find your product, they go to flyteai.com. That's FLYTEAI.com, right?
That's correct.
And
Please sign up as our beta user, and we would love to test our product with you and would love to get your valuable feedback.
well, thank you so much, Shilpa. It's such a great interview, and we would love to have a follow-up one in the future once you've reached, new milestones and stuff like that. I think it'll be very exciting to follow you guys' progress.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I really appreciate Metabob team for giving this opportunity and talking about Flyte in detail. Really appreciate that.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.